First at 6, typically around major events, it is reported that human trafficking is escalated. As Indianapolis is in the middle of hosting a national event, attracting thousands of people, it makes knowing what human trafficking looks like, what the signs are, and how to stop it that much more critical.
Tonight, WRTV investigates Stephanie Wade speaks with a trafficking survivor and the push from a local healthcare worker for more training when it comes for treating and caring patients with this kind of trauma.
Even to this day, I wake up nightmare sweating.
Living with his mother, who was struggling with mental illness and an opiate addiction at a very young age.
11 and a half, right after my grandma passed away. And that's when my mom slowly started introducing me to the pedophilia culture.
Eric Harris says he began being sex trafficked by his own mother.
She would have coworkers that would come over. They would cross my personal boundaries.
His mother's boyfriend at the time, he says, would later become his pimp.
Because there was so dysfunction between me and my mother, I did not know what appropriate and healthy boundaries were, so it made it more easier for him to catch me in compromising positions, walk in the bathroom while I was taking the shower, or be hovering over my bed late at night staring at me.
One night, Harris's mother and her boyfriend got in a fight, he says, and she left, but Harris stayed.
And after DCS came through and made sure all of their checks and balances were in place, pretty much about a week after that, I was taken to what is called a trap house. And that's where I was exploited by different men every night for about a period of 6 months.
6 months, Harris endured physical and sexual abuse, he says. Eventually, he escaped, but the immense trauma and pain followed for years.
I escaped my reality by using drugs.
He says it wasn't just child services that failed to notice the signs of abuse, but the healthcare system too.
I would always constantly feel like being judged, regardless if I was going to be vulnerable and open up about my exploitation, or why the hell am I in there with a concussion?
Every time he would go to the hospital with an injury, he says, his symptoms of abuse were either undetected or ignored.
It's really kind of hard to trust a system that's made to protect you or keep you healthy when it's failed you so many multiple times.
Trafficking is a taxing experience. It's a violent experience. It's an exhausting experience. So things are going to happen to your body, right? And so the folks are being brought into hospitals. They're being brought into emergency rooms. They're being brought in even potentially for a sexual assault exam.
Kate Kimmer, Indiana's statewide anti-trafficking coordinator, says human trafficking victims often come in contact with the healthcare system, but the treatment they receive can be poor and demeaning, making it difficult for these victims to articulate their abuse and feel ashamed because of it.
Whether it's, I don't believe what you're saying happened, I get a lot of disbelief around my clients. They're trying to manipulate us. They want to get this out of us, or they want to get that out of us, or whether it's just completely dismissive.
The repercussions, Kimmer says, can be deadly.
Just our own biases as healthcare givers is an ongoing thing that we struggle with.
Gathered around this table are a nurse, a survivor, an advocate, and healthcare leaders trying to identify ways hospitals can improve their care.
I want to do better, and I know my coworkers, we want to do better, but we don't know what we don't know.
What they want healthcare professionals to begin learning is trauma-informed care.
We need education. I've worked in labor and delivery for 20 years, and I have no education on trauma-informed care.
This kind of training includes not just knowing how to identify trafficking victims or someone who's been sexually assaulted, but how to talk to them, how to properly treat them so they feel comfortable opening up.
Just so much as even when you walk in the room, introduce your name before you touch the person, right? If I'm a person who's been harmed physically and sexually many times, it's going to be very daunting for somebody to just reach forward, even with a stethoscope.
And then, how to help.
The what to do next.
It is.
That if you can identify someone, then
Now what?
What are you supposed to do with it? So yeah, welcome to the Dream House, right? This is a place for people to dream.
Here at Dream House on the Near East Side of Indianapolis, Stephanie Jeffers and her team give women who have engaged in sex work or been exploited through sex trafficking a place to dream again.
We do believe that recovery begins the moment someone walks in the door.
They offer classes where women learn about self-identity, how to build healthy relationships, and simply lend an ear without judgment. A former sex worker herself.
There were years where I felt there were places I didn't belong and places that I couldn't go and that I could never tell my story because of the judgments that would be placed upon me.
Jeffers now partners with Franciscan Health, Ashkenazi, and Community Health Network locally, so providers have somewhere to send potential victims if they're ready and want the help.
They know what we offer, then they will reach out to us and say, you know, I have someone potentially who might want to talk with you, and then we can take it from there.
In 2019, the National Human Trafficking Hotline was contacted by 327 potential human trafficking victims in Indiana, with a total of 157 statewide human trafficking cases reported that year, with nurses often responsible to pick up on clues themselves. Healthcare professionals are asking for more training to better meet the needs of survivors before it's too late.
If someone isn't able to access care until they walk off the street and go someplace and get clean, people are going to die. And that's not okay. It's not okay that people die by themselves in an alley in the cold without ever knowing that they were worth more.
Stephanie Wade, WRTV.
Not okay. Franciscan Health just received a statewide grant to begin trauma-informed care training this year. They will be conducting several in-person courses throughout 2021 for all Franciscan employees on how to treat patients who present as trauma victims. They're also stocking all of their emergency departments with hygiene and self-care kits for potential survivors or victims of trauma. If you suspect human trafficking, call the Department of Child Services Abuse and Neglect Hotline immediately. That number is 1-800-800-5556. You can also call the National Hotline for Human Trafficking and report it. That number is 1-888-373-7888. We also have both of these numbers in this story on the WRTV app and on our website at WRTV.com. Right now, you can hear from a survivor of human trafficking who was actually trafficked on the campus of Indiana University. The panel discussion started moments ago at 6 p.m., but the discussion lasts until 7:30. WRTV is moderating the discussion tonight. It is hosted by the Links Incorporated. We have a Zoom link on our website right now at WRTV.com and on the WRTV Facebook page.
It's also important to realize human trafficking also includes labor trafficking, which is happening right now in Indiana. Each year, Indiana Legal Services represents dozens of people working in the agricultural industry who are victims of labor trafficking. High-risk labor trafficking industries include farm work, construction, domestic work, carnival work, and landscaping. Indiana Legal Services offers many resources for trafficking survivors. That includes victims' rights education, representation to sue traffickers, criminal and civil restitution, immigration assistance, housing services, mental health services, and more.